Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rewire. My name is Chris Boutte. Yes, you heard it right. My name is Chris Boutte. And yeah, I just started this YouTube channel, so this is the first one. And I just wanted to explain a little bit about what this channel is, what's it going to be, and what you can expect. So the first thing is, why am I calling it the Rewire? Well, something that I've learned, as somebody who has dealt with, anxiety and depression, drug addiction, alcoholism, every terrible thing that can happen to your mind that I've dealt with, I've learned that, our brain is like this muscle and it can be strengthened, it can be trained, it can be rewired. There is scientific proof that there are things that we can do to retrain our brains and to get out of certain ways of thinking. Um, I happen to work in the mental health field. I work at a drug and alcohol rehab. I have a lot of friends who struggle with mental health issues. And I have a lot of friends who just struggle with life issues. And there's so many different things out there that are out there to help people deal with life in a better way. And I don't think it's talked about enough. So, even though there are different videos that pop up on Facebook or YouTube, and they're, usually a few minutes long, one of the issues I've had watching these is that, yeah, they're talking about really great issues, but a lot of them are just talking about the problem, or they're just telling you to just, have the willpower to push through it and, love yourself and be yourself and it's okay to be you and all these other things, and I totally agree. But for me, who's very analytical and I like things that are based on science, I've done a lot of research, I've read books and all these different things, and I want to help you out with that too if you're struggling with any of these types of issues. So, the first thing, just a little bit about me, I suffered, past tense, from anxiety and depression growing up. I grew up with an alcoholic mother. There were childhood issues, middle school and high school. I always felt uncomfortable in my own skin. Even though I had friends and I played sports, I dated and all those things, I always felt that I was different. And a lot of it was because I was looking around and I saw everybody else dealing with life in such a better way than I was, and I couldn't understand why. I had these feelings of, impending doom, or I would freak out and I would be worried, I would be scared, and it was very hard to live like that. And unfortunately, when I was about 18 years old, I found a solution, but that solution came in the form of alcohol. And when the alcohol stopped working, it went to prescription painkillers, it went to cocaine, but I was trying just about anything to get me out of my own head. Um, so unfortunately, that resulted in about an 8-year drug addiction, and it was terrible. I lost everything, and I was fortunate enough to get sober on my 27th birthday back in June of 2012. And this came after, going to the hospital and having a 10% chance of living. And I was at a point in my life where I was tired of living. I was tired of living the way I was living. And aside from the addiction, I just knew, I knew that if drugs and alcohol weren't in my life, I was going to have to go back to facing life in a way that I didn't know how to. So I didn't see the point. But thankfully, because of my recovery and getting introduced to 12-step programs, I learned a better way to live. And the best thing that I learned from these programs was that, there is hope. There is hope for anybody to get well, get better, and have a better life. And, this channel isn't just for drug addicts. It's not just for people who suffer from severe mental illness or anything like that. This is for people who just have problems dealing with issues in life. There are ways to get through them in better ways than a lot of us are used to. Um, One of the things that I had to do early on in my recovery, and it kind of had to come from within, was I made a decision that I was going to quit playing the victim. And when I say that, not a victim to people, places, or situations, I was going to quit playing the victim to my own mind. See, for a lot of us, our brains are our worst enemy. When we're stuck alone in our own thoughts, our mind tells us things that, aren't true. And I'm not talking about voices in your head or anything like that, although some people may deal with those issues. But, a lot of it is just, feelings of self-worth, feelings that we're different, feelings that we're not going to get better. And that's part of it. A lot of us, we accept the fact that, okay, I have anxiety, I have depression, this is as good as it gets. And if you're like me, you're someone, or anyone who goes through bouts of depression or bouts of anxiety, or you suffer from PTSD. These are things where some of us have to leave work. Sometimes we can't even interact with our children. We can't interact with our friends, our family. And I was tired of letting my mind control me and be debilitating. So I went out there and I did research. I was like, what can I do to improve my mind? And I found different ways to do that. And it's nothing crazy. There's a lot of just simple things that a lot of us aren't doing on a day-to-day basis that can greatly improve the quality of our life. Um, and part of this whole thing, part of the reason why, I don't have some crazy secret or anything, but I just don't think that we talk about it enough. We don't talk about the solution enough because, unfortunately, there's still a stigma about mental health. Um, One of the reasons is because, a lot of people don't fully understand it. They don't understand that there are chemicals going through our body. There are different neurons going on and connections happening, and some of us are just wired differently. So, we look at these people who are stressed out, they're anxious, people who are sad, lonely, depressed, and we look at them and say, how can you be sad right now? You have a great job, you have a loving husband, you have kids, you have a car, you have money. You don't deserve to be sad right now, right? And then we start thinking that something's wrong with us. What are you stressed out about? It's not a big deal. Just get over it. Just calm down, right? Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, and there's a stigma about it because, trust me, so many of us, if we could just flip a switch, stop being anxious, stop being depressed, stop, thinking about our traumatic events that happened, in the past, all these things, yeah, I would love to flip that switch, but it's not that easy. Um, and I'm not here to give you an easy solution either. When I'm talking about rewiring the brain, we have to retrain it. It needs to be trained. But if you are someone who has had these things said to you, don't worry about it. That's the best thing I can tell you, because we each deserve the opportunity to live this incredible life, and it's out there for each and every one of us. I never thought I'd be here today, and what's happened for me is that I went from somebody who was miserable and depressed and anxious and just afraid to even be out in public, to someone who has way more good days than I have bad days. The bad days still come. My life's not perfect, but I'm able to get through them in a much better way. And a lot of what happens too is, and anybody who has children or anybody who's struggling with mental illness and or doesn't understand mental illness, you might be watching this and just want a better understanding of what's going on out there. A lot of us aren't taught about mental illness. At my drug and alcohol rehab that I work at, I often in groups, when I'm talking about mental illness, I ask people, how many of you in this room took a health class in middle school or high school, right? And everybody raises their hand, everybody who's been to school, right? And then I ask them, I say, okay, now think back to that time in your life, think back about what they taught you. Did they ever talk to you about anxiety, clinical depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, symptoms of schizophrenia? Did they talk to you about these things? Did they give you tools to deal with these things? And everybody just kind of sits back and kind of look up. You might be doing this right now and just thinking about it. And no, we were never taught about these things, right? So, and nobody told us when we were kids, when we were just toddlers. Nobody came up to us and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that life is intense. Life is going to be rough." And this is something that an instructor brought up to me, and I was like, "You're right." Nobody told me how powerful feelings and emotions can be. And if you're like me, sometimes we get those emotions and we feel like they're never going to go away. And nobody really talks to us about these things. So what happens is most symptoms of mental illness develop between the ages of 14 and 24. And because there's not much of an understanding out there about mental illness, a lot of us don't talk about it when it first happens, right? So, I'll use myself as an example. When I'm having anxiety and depression hitting me from left and right, and I'm a teenager, on the varsity football team, a lot of my friends are fellow jocks and stuff like that. We have that whole tough guy routine. How am I supposed to go up to one of my buddies on the football team and say, "Hey man, I'm not really sure what's going on, but I just feel really sad and lonely all the time. I'm afraid in crowds of people. I can't explain it, but I start breathing really hard and I feel my chest pumping," right? Most people look at me like I'm crazy. It's not something that we talk about. So what happens is that a lot of us stuff that. We don't talk about it. And it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And next thing we're in our 20s, we're in our 30s, and we never were taught how to deal with these things. But we live in a society right now where, mainly in America, where we're taught that anything that you're dealing with can be fixed in a pill or a substance, right? So here's some antidepressants, here's some anti-anxiety medications. This one will help you sleep. This one will do this one will do that. And that's largely why, we have such an addiction problem, in the country today. So, there are so many different ways out there that we can actually work on these things without having to take these substances because, I was prescribed a non-narcotic anti-anxiety medication. They gave me the maximum dosage after I grew a tolerance to it, and I still get anxiety. And that's when I took a step back and said, what am I supposed to do now? I'm still getting anxious. It's not as bad, but I'm still getting anxious. And, it's scary when you're on the freeway, right? It's scary when you're with your child. It's scary when you're, out on a date. It's scary when you're with friends and family. So I went out and I did research, and I'm trying to find ways to combat this stuff because my medications, are no longer doing what I think they should do. And I've found a million different ways, and I'm hoping that I can share some of these with you. And there's a bunch of different ways to look at it. And the only thing I will ask you, if you keep watching these videos, if you're looking for some solutions, if you're hitting these hurdles in your life, right? The only thing I'm asking of you is just to keep an open mind. Some of it might sound stupid, some of it might sound silly, some of it might sound too hard, right? Sometimes you might try something I suggest, you don't feel an effect right away, but some of these things take practice. Some of them are going to sound dumb, and I thought all of it sounded dumb too. But like I said, I'm sitting here with a bunch of tools that I've been able to use to help me live this great life that I'm living today. And it's not perfect, like I said, but it is leaps and bounds better than the life I was living. And we all deserve to live this mentally healthy life. And there are ways to do this as long as you have the willingness to do it, as long as you keep an open mind. So I hope that you keep watching some of these videos. I will put a link to my email address because I'm hoping as this goes on, you guys will email me topics or questions and stuff that I can kind of talk about and focus on and maybe give you some resources so you can investigate it yourself and try things out. But yeah, thank you for checking out The Rewire. This is Chris signing out, and I will see you next time.